Formby is one of those genteel sort of places where the nearest the inhabitants get to violent crime in the normal course of events is watching Kojak. Yet, in recent weeks, Formby has been rocked by a crime wave that has the police baffled and local residents aghast.
The first victims were the Tinian family, Jeff and Barbara and their 2 children. They live here at number 24 Gardner Road in Formby. Before a week was out, the Tinians had experienced the anguish of a kidnapping, the torment of a ransom demand, and the maiming for life of a loved one. This living hell began on, of all days, Christmas Eve.
The family had just returned from Christmas shopping when Gary spotted something wrong.
Hey, look, the gnome's been nicked.
Yes, Fred, the beloved garden gnome, who'd done sentry duty for years on the front lawn, had been abducted. Closer inspection indicated that Fred had one foot in the grave already, not to mention half the other leg. As they mourned the dear departed, the Tinians puzzled as to his fate. It only became clear that this was a classic kidnap case when a crudely written note was found on the mat.
Your gnome has 72 hours to live.
Unless you wrap 25p and leave at the car park at Safeways near the bowling green, then
go away and await further instructions. That's for me.
What's that?
This is no hoax.
Aye, aye.
Spelling's good.
Thoughts of Fred ending up stone dead sent young Gary to his piggy bank in a desperate attempt to raise the 25 pence ransom money. Then news began to pour in of further outrages. A mile away, Mrs. Cooper, who'd suffered a double gnome bereavement a year ago, came home to find the replacements had been asphyxiated.
What was on your ransom note then?
Oh, if you want to see your gnomes again, put 25p under the roundabout in the park, and this is no hoax.
So all you were left with were these nasty little patches in the lawn?
Yes, just the patches where my gnomes had been.
Things got so bad that a measure of panic set in. Gnome owners began taking their little friends indoors, and there was talk of forming a group of local vigilantes, a sort of gnome guard. There were even rumours that Formby police had formed an undercover squad. Evening, Constable.
Evening, sir.
Well, what or who could possibly be behind it all?
One theory poses the possibility of a mad millionaire, Dr. Gnome, intent on building the finest collection of little garden people in the world. The suggestion goes that from his castle hideout, this infamous monomaniac has launched an international gnome-snatching operation in which Formby is just a dummy run. With no arrest in sight, the Gnome Office has sent in a man with unique experience in this field, Mr. Plod, who's working on the theory that the getaway car was a Hillman imp. One early lead made him suspect an inside job. After all, a member of the Tinian family is known to belong to a uniformed paramilitary organization with an interest in gnomes, pixies, and elves. But after helping Mr. Plod with his inquiries, Christine was eliminated from the case. Meanwhile, the affair took an amazing turn when, at dead of night, Fred Tinian was returned. The same thing happened at Mrs. Cooper's.
What happened when they were brought back?
Well, my son brought me back on the Wednesday after Christmas, and I went straight in. I didn't bother. Anyway, he came out and he said, "Oh, your gnomes are back, Mum." But he said, it's somebody with a big foot that's brought them back because the imprints are on the snow.
Unfortunately, Arthur, Mrs. Cooper's special favourite, had suffered head injuries which even the National Elf Service couldn't cure.
Well, I was a bit annoyed, and then I thought, well, what's the use of worrying? Worse things than that can happen in the world.
Later, the true size of the crime wave became apparent when 4 more kidnapped victims were found in a field and taken into police custody.
Right, madam, if you'd care to identify your gnome, please.
Gnome identity parades were held to restore the poor little mites to their grieving families.
That's my gnome.
You are quite sure, madam?
Oh, yes, yes. One of his ears is missing.
I see.
To this day, these evil crimes remain unsolved. The best efforts of the undercover squad have failed to find a villain.
Would Pixie 49 proceed to Elfin Gardens, where a person is known to be tampering with an MG midget?